Welcome back to IAS Net Study. And this is the new ethics series. In this ethics series, we are going to integrate your static concepts with dynamic aspect. Dynamic aspect is the current affairs, and we are going to integrate whatever you learn in your static concept, that is the topics that are mentioned in your syllabus, and we are going to integrate those things with your current affairs. So, decode ethics through current affairs, or learn current affairs, or integrate current affairs with your ethics. So let's get into the discussion of this. And here in this video, we are going to cover current affairs from March 19th to March 20th. So let's get into the discussion of this. The first article, Transgender Rights Bill. And what exactly this article here, if you look at the news article, it's taken from a Hindu newspaper. What is new in Transgender Rights Bill? So the article is talking about Transgender Act was passed in 2019. Right. Now, certain modifications have been proposed in this new bill, and it is placed in the floor of the House in the Parliament. So this is the article. This is what article is talking about. See, from political perspective, we are not going to discuss about it. We have to see it from ethical perspective. What are the ethical concepts? What are the ethical dilemmas? And what are the ethical solution? These three aspects are usually we focus in our discussion. So this is the news article. It is talking about transgender rights, very precisely Transgender Rights Act of 2019. Certain modifications have been proposed by the government of India, and the discussion regarding that modification is mentioned in this article. Right now, let's see what let's see the ethical aspects or ethical points in this particular bill. So as I told you, Transgenders Persons Protection of Rights Act 2009, it was passed in 2009, and this is the first central law, and that gives legal recognition and legal protection for the transgender persons and including LGBT. So this is Transgender Right Acts of 2019. Now, new bill, certain changes have been proposed. And what are these changes? In 2019 Act, so here the definition of transgender, it was very simple. Here, individual has that authority to declare himself or herself whether the person belongs to a transgender community. Now, the legal recognition dependent on a self-declaration in 2019 Act. Now, the proposed bill of 2026, it has changed this particular aspect. Now, if you have to be declared as a transgender, or if you want some legal protection or a legal recognition as a transgender, then it has to be accepted, agreed by a medical board. You have to get this medical certification, and under if you have this medical certification, then only you are eligible to get benefits under this particular act. This act, it gives protection, legal protection. It has even certain level of reservations, sorry, certain privileges have been granted under the bill. Now, before it as a self declaration that I belong to a transgender community or not, as a person who is going to declare. Now, this aspect has been changed. You need to have a certificate, and this certificate will be given by a medical board. So you have to get this certificate. Now, question has been raised with respect to this certificate, and why is it necessary? That is the discussion. So let's see the ethical aspects of it. The Nalsa judgment and even Article 21. Article 21 is a fundamental right, and even Nalsa judgment, Supreme Court has upheld the rights of a transgender person and the people belong to LGBT community. Now, even under Article 21, self-perceived gender identity, it is considered fundamental right. Now, this is in line with 2019 Act. Now, government is modifying it. Government is telling that you need to have that certificate from a medical board. So now what happens? One side, administrative convenience, government is telling that people are misusing this act, and we don't want that misuse. We want to target, we want to give benefits to the people belong to the transgender community. But here what happens, one side there is a administrative convenience, another side individual dignity. So see, I want to declare myself as a transgender, but now it is not my opinion, it is the board of medical, they have to give the certification. So individual dignity, one side there is an individual dignity, another side there is administrative convenience. So which one can state override the administrative convenience, can state override the individual dignity for administrative convenience? Is it right? That is one ethical issue here. And the second here is that, see, already transgender community, they are marginalized. They belong to the marginalized group. There are a lot of exploitation. It is going on these people. They are considered as the most vulnerable and marginalized section of a country. So now you have framed the policy, and in this policy, certain even people belong to transgender community, even they told in they were giving interviews to the media, and they were approaching the court also. What they are telling is, we have not been contacted, our consultations are not being considered. Here what happens, the concept of empathy, the concept of compassion, it is not seen here. So the ethical values of empathy and compassion is lacking in this decision. So their opinion, they are already marginalized sections, they are already being exploited. Now there you are coming up with a bill, you are coming up with an act to help them, but the irony is that they have not been consulted. So this shows the lack of empathy, this shows the lack of compassion. And next is, those whose identity is medically verifiable, they are going to get the right. So whatever the legal protection, whatever the reservation, whatever it is been mentioned in the act, it is available only to the people who are medically verified, who have that certificate, who have been medically verified. Only those people, they are going to get it, and others, they are not going to get it. Even though the person belongs to a transgender community, but he or she is not going to get the privileges here. The reason and what exactly this causes, this violates the concept of distributive justice. So this goes against the concept of distributive justice. Aristotle also talks about distributive justice, and the John Rawls talks about distributive justice. So this goes against this. And another thing is, one side 2019, it is self determination, and in 2026, the it is state determination. Self determination to state determination. Here you are questioning the autonomy, individual autonomy, you are questioning the individual dignity. So here, what are the ethical issues here? The first is individual dignity over administrative convenience, and lack of empathy and compassion, and it is violating the distributive justice. And we are moving from state determination to, sorry, self determination to state determination. Again, it is going to question the individual dignity. So these are certain ethical issues. Now what are the ethical solutions? How can you handle this? The first thing is, it is the responsibility of the government. See, what government is telling is that, see, even we want to help the transgender community, and that is the reason we want to help these people who are genuinely belong to the transgender community. We want to help them. So that is the reason we are coming up with these changes. Now, one argument, government, it has certain argument, it has a merit also, and even people belong to the transgender community, they also have a cost. Now how do you deal with that? You need to balance it. So whatever the perspective, both the perspective, the balancing should be there. So government is talking about targeted welfare delivery. So even government from its side, the intention is genuine. At the same time, what you are looking at, even you have to listen to the other side also. There is a fundamental right. Article 21 talks about self-identification. So here it goes against the fundamental right. So the self-perceived gender identity is a fundamental right. So whatever the steps you are taking, it goes against it. Now what is your responsibility? You have to balance these two aspects. This is one ethical solution. And the second is, what government is telling, that some of the aspects, some of the privileges that have been mentioned under the 2019 act, it is being misused. So there is a concern for a misuse, so that has to be addressed. What exactly, where exactly the loophole is, you need to focus on that. Rather than creating these kind of chaos, you create a system. There should be a checks and balances. You create a checks and balances, so that those checks and balances should help to eliminate these misuse. Not questioning the dignity of an individual, not questioning the autonomy of individual. That is the second ethical solution. And conduct a right impact assessment. You are aware of environmental impact assessment, you are aware of social impact assessment. These you must have read it in your GS 123. Now the new concept for ethics is rights impact assessment. So this has to be conducted in future. If you're making any changes, then rights based assessment or rights impact assessment, this has to be conducted. And people who belong to these communities, their voices should be taken into consideration. So the third ethical solution is conduct a right impact assessment. And then see what the attitude of government, if you look at it, it shows like a charity mindset. So we are helping these people, it is charity based mindset. So you need to change this mindset. It is not charity. Even people belong to the transgender community, they also citizens of our country. They also have that constitutional protection, they also have that fundamental right. So you cannot violate constitutional morality, you cannot violate fundamental rights that have been granted by constitution. So change this attitude of charity mindset. It is their right. So you are fulfilling your duty by protecting their rights. So mindset has to be changed. When you mindset has to be changed, then if intention is pure and the mindset is transgender pro transgender, I mean to say that if you want to help them, if that is the mindset, then outcome will also be positive here. So here you have to recognize transgender persons as an equal rights bearing citizen. You're not doing charity, it is your responsibility, it is your duty, fulfill your duty. That is your responsibility. That is the fourth ethical solution. And the final is empowerment based model, where whatever policies you make, especially the civil servants, including the political representatives also, you must uphold certain values. What are the values? Autonomy of an individual, you must uphold the dignity of an individual, equality and inclusion. So these values you should not compromise. So these are some of the ethical solution for these kind of ethical dilemmas, or any ethical issues with respect to policies, government policies. So this is with respect to transgender bill. We talked about what exactly transgender bill the issues, and we talked about what are the ethical issues, and we talked about ethical solutions also. And yes, that would be sufficient for this article. Let's move to the next article. The next article is regarding world happiness report, and the article is talking about world happiness report. And see, what you have to focus is the parameters of world happiness report. Per se, they are not going to ask about world happiness report, but the parameters that are used in world happiness report, that is quite important. You need to focus on that. And there was a question in the ethics also, what is happiness for you? Explain from your personal perspective. This kind of question was there regarding even there was a question. Usually if you look at the previous year question papers, questions based on these emotions, greed, anger, happiness, desires, these kind of questions are very common in UPSC papers. So here what we focus here is the what are the parameters and connecting with the ethical concepts. So world happiness report, let's see the news first and then we talk about ethical aspects here. So it's a global report, and every year once a year this report is going to be published, and usually it is a comparative analysis of people belong to which country are more happier. So this kind of analysis is done by this particular report. So number one rank is given to the Finland, and most of the Nordic countries, they are in the top 5 or top 10. And let's see the Indian ranking, it is 116 out of the 147 countries, right? So this is word happiness report. Now the important aspect here is the key factors that are considered for the study of this report. Usually 15 years ago, if you look at the 10, 15, maybe 20 years ago, most of these kind of international reports, or the parameters used in international reports, it is economic related uh, benchmarks, GDP, income, PPP. These kind of financial aspects are considered for these kind of reports. But after HDI, the Human Development Index, the happiness report, freedom report, these kind of reports, they've emerged. And if you look at the common factor of these newly emerged indexes, newly emerged reports, is that it is not the money, it is not the economy, it is not the finance. Other aspects also taken into the consideration. What are the other aspects here? If you look at the parameter, money is one of the aspects, GDP per person, that is there, fine. Along with that, now the family support, friends, the social aspect has been considered, the healthy long life, freedom, being kind and generous, low corruption. See, these are value based parameters. So value based parameters are included in these kind of reports, in these kind of indexes. So these are important. Good friend, the social values are included. There was a question also, difference between economic values and the social values. Which one is more important for the nation's development? There you can use these kind of order material there. So these are the parameters. Now let's connect with the ethics factor here. Here report is happiness report. So if you look at the parameters, what do we get it here? The parameters very precisely talk about certain values. It talks about compassion, it talks about trust, it talks about kindness in the society, it talks about low corruption. So it's not only the money, or it is not only the power, it is beyond that. And what exactly that beyond includes? It includes the ethical values, it includes the moral values. So true happiness lies in the values in the society. This is one thing. And the second thing is, the most of these concepts, if you look at it, it somewhere aligns to the concept of seva. Service seva is that you are helping other person without any expectation. So it is happiness linked to the seva, happiness linked to the service. Even Gandhi also told the same thing, happiness through the service to the others. Even Swami Vivekananda talked about the same thing, that service to the man is a service to the god. And see, various scholars, they talked about these things. Somewhere your happiness is linked to how you perceive others, and the level of service or the seva you give to other people. So it links to the Gandhian ethics. It links to the various philosophers, the philosophical idea of various philosophers around the world. And it links with ethical governance. We have a governance, we have a good governance, we have ethical. So ultimate is ethical governance, and what these parameters we have discussed, it aligns with the concept of ethical governance. So if you look at it, it talks about certain indicators, talk about corruption, it talks about high trust, transparent institution. These are nothing but probity in governance. These are nothing but ethics in governance, ethical governance. So it is linked to that ethical governance, and it is linked to the emotional intelligence also. See, if you want to be happy, you have to be calm from inside. You have to be content from inside. So there is no stress, you are calm, you are content. That will lead to the happiness here. And how do you reach to that calm and contentness? Through emotional intelligence. If you could able to control your emotions, that will lead to the calmness, and that will lead to the happiness. So even emotional intelligence is also one of the reasons for happiness. So you are connecting emotional intelligence with happiness. Then another value, some of the values, freedom and autonomy. Freedom and autonomy here, if you look at it, it talks about freedom to choose your own life path. Here what happens, it gives that freedom to do whatever you have certain desires, you have certain goals, and you want to achieve that. And if your society is, if your country is giving those opportunity to expand your capabilities, then you are happy. So these are some of the values which are necessary to make you happy individually. If you are happy, if everybody are happy in a country, eventually country will be happy. So these are certain ethical aspects of this happiness report, right? That would be sufficient for World Happiness Report. Let's move to the next article. The next article is regarding hate speech. Here, the article is talking about a fight against hate speech must be on behalf of all, the Supreme Court. I'll tell you what exactly this news article is talking about. Supreme Court has made an observation. What is the observation here? Somebody filed a petition in Supreme Court mentioning that people are attacking Brahmin community. They are making derogatory comments, and it is impacting. This is what they are telling. Now, Supreme Court has made an observation that they've told that yes, hate speech is wrong, but it should not be very selective. So hate speech from every perspective is wrong, whether it is made against the Brahmin community or some other community, some other minority, it is wrong. So there should not be any selective approach. We need to see this hate speech from a broader perspective. This is the news here. Let's see the ethical perspective of this news. See, let me clarify that we are not going to see the ethical aspect of hate speech here. We are going to discuss about ethical aspect of this statement observation by Supreme Court, that uh, hate speech must be on behalf of all. So whoever does hate speech, that is wrong, and we have to protect, we have to give that prevention factor. So this is what we are going to see, the ethical aspects of the Supreme Court observation. So let's see. Now, court has told that whatever court has told, the observation, Supreme Court observation, it talks about impartiality. So court has told that it is not about hate speech against one community. Hate speech per se, on the whole, we have to take a stand. We have to take actions if there is a hate speech. So this talks about impartiality. So here the emphasis is universal. So it is not selective stance. It is non-selective stance. Wherever it is hate speech, yes, we are going to take action against it. So it talks about the Supreme Court observation talks about impartiality. Supreme Court observation talks about equality also. So here it is a guidelines for civil servants also, public servants also. So these guidelines, it shows that you're not in favor of any group, any community, any religion, any language, any caste. So you have to uphold the rule of law. So if you are applying rule of law everybody, so there is a factor of equality. So the next value is equality. The first value under Supreme Court observation is impartiality. The next value is equality. And the third value it is talking about public trust. See, if there is a selective outrage, then people are not going to trust. So if hate speech is there, you have to take action. So you have to build the public trust. How do you build that? By going against the selective approach. If you go through these kind of selective approach, then this is going to promote bias in the society. So again, this is going to create some kind of division, some kind of disharmony. So in order to foster harmony, you need to eliminate this selective approach. So the next ethical aspect, ethical value or a moral value is the harmony. So the observation made by Supreme Court, it is talking about harmony. Then it is talking about moral consistency. Moral consistency is that, again, if you do the selective outrage, it becomes moral inconsistency. So if wherever hate speech is happening, you're raising your voice and you're equally taking stand for all these things, then it is moral consistency. You're not doing it for your personal favor. Usually politicians, what happens, whoever, if they have a larger vote bank, they usually pacify, they usually listen to whatever the their vote bank is demanding. See, it should be beyond that political the advantage. It should beyond this, whatever mileage I get out of the situation, it should beyond that. In order to go beyond that, you need to have. So this Supreme Court observation, it is also talking about the courage of conviction. So even if there is a decision you are making, whatever stand you are taking, it may be politically inconvenient for you, but it shows that there is a courage of conviction. If you do it for your personal agenda, if you do it for political mileage, then it clearly shows that lack of fortitude, it clearly shows that lack of courage. So if you stick on that non-selectiveness, if you stick on to that non-biasness, then it shows the value of courage of conviction. So these are the certain values we can derive out of the Supreme Court observation. The first is impartiality, then equality, then public trust, then harmony, moral consistency, and the courage of conviction. Right? Let's move to the next article. The next article: social media ban for minors. How India is trying to regulate children's social media use. Even Australia was also talking about banning social media for minors, and even in India, certain states they are thinking of it. And Karnataka is one of the state where it has announced a ban of social media for children under 16 years age. Now, central government it is also taking. Even Gujarat, there was some news regarding Gujarat also. They are also thinking to put that ban for minors. So now central government it has taken a decision what to do, how to handle this situation. Now they are talking with the social media platforms. Now they are coming up with certain ideas, and one of the idea is age based restriction. It is like there is a full restrictions for people, for the kids who are below 13 years, and from 12 to 16 certain level of restrictions, and from 16 to 18 much more freedom, and next level of restriction. So these kind of tired access this is what the central government is talking about. Let's talk about, this is the news, but let's talk about social media ban for minor from an ethical perspective. Is it right or wrong? If it is right, you have to give the arguments. And it's this comes under the concept of applied ethics. In the first unit, applied ethics, whatever the decisions you make, you have to substantiate your decision. And always, if substantiate means you have to say whether you're following based on utilitarian approach, whether you're based on the virtue approach, whether it is based on the right based approach. See, based on that you're taking a decision, so you have to substantiate your stand. Now if government is taking this decision, it has to substantiate its stand. So that is the thing, even if you're writing answer, you have to substantiate your stand. So let's see the concept social media ban for minors. So what are the ethical dilemmas in this concept here? One side, government is telling that we want to protect the child because there is cyberbullying, harassment, these kind of cyber stalking, these kind of things usually happens. Now government is taking that the reason we are doing we for the social media ban is to protect children from these kind of abuses. This is one argument. Another argument is that every individual has that rights, every individual has that freedom. Now you are taking away that individual rights. One side child protection, another side individual rights. So how do you handle it? This is one dilemma. Second dilemma is that state acting, there is a state paternalism, so state wants to protect it, one side. Another side, As an individual person, I have the freedom and autonomy. Now, which one to choose? Individual freedom, individual autonomy, or the state paternalism? That is the ethical another ethical dilemma here. Now the third dilemma is that corporate responsibilities, that even if you look at the Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all these things, Google, they all are private entities and they are working for the profit. Now, if you ban it, one side it is going to, definitely it is going to create some kind of financial loss to these companies. One side financial loss, another side they have certain responsibility, that a certain responsibility toward the people, social responsibility is there. If you uphold the social responsibility, it is going to impact the financial aspects. And if you want to increase that financial aspect, it is going to impact the social aspect. And how do you have both the responsibilities, so how do you handle it? So these are certain ethical dilemmas here. Now, I told you that whatever the decisions you take, you have to give the answer. See, if you tell that I am going to go for a social media ban, and your reason is that utilitarian approach. Utilitarianity is that maximum benefit to maximum number of people. Here, maximum benefit is, see, this social media, it creates certain level of harm to the children. And what is this harm? There is a addiction to the internet, self harm, violence exposure, nudity, all these things are there. These are one side. Another side, person, as a child, person, the kid is going to lose some of the opportunity. Even internet is a way of learning now. The knowledge, the idea of knowledge, the idea of learning, it has changed very large, from a very large perspective. Now, child, it feels like isolated. If there is no net connection or social media accessibility, it may feel like losing an opportunity. And since there is a restriction and you have the alternatives like VPN, with the help of this alternative you can still access it. Now, maximum benefit to maximum number of people. So based on that, benefits and the negatives, how do you handle it? If you're taking yes, if you're saying yes to the social media ban, then give the appropriate the explanation. If you say no to the ban, give the appropriate explanation. So even I have given both the things. Even for utilitarian approach only, I've told both positive and negative. It is up to you. Based on your intelligence level, you can use it in your favor. And deontological, see, you can say that yes, I am going to ban the social media for minors. The reason is that based on the deontological approach. Under the deontological approach, it is my duty to protect the rights of a minor. So I have to give them a safe environment, safe developmental prospectus. Because of that, I am banning this. So this is the explanation you are giving. So I'm just adding the examples here. So you're banning based on utilitarian approach, you're banning based on deontological approach, you're banning based on the right based approach, you're banning based on the justice approach. You can choose any of these approaches and give the proper explanation. Right. Now, how do you handle it? What is the solution, ethical solution? The first thing is, see, banning it is not a right approach here. Total ban, it is considered as a blunt instrument. Usually it is considered, it is questionable around the world, complete this banning, total ban, all these things. See, it is not effective because you have an alternative, you have VPNs and you can bypass the ban everything. So it is going to bypass your law. And what is the point? If you are bypass, there is a loophole in the law and people are taking advantage of it, it is not going to work at the ground level. So now what are the steps, what are the ethical solutions to it? See, there should be a multi-level approach. And what is that? First is prevention. Prevention is that digital or media literacy should be given to the children. And even school level counseling, parental tools, parental controls, that can be enhanced. This is for prevention. Then comes regulation. Regulation is that let them use it, but you regulate the usage. How do you regulate the usage? Through enforce age verification, so privacy preserving. And if there are any addictive feeds, the algorithms, if there are any addictive algorithms, you work on it, you talk to the media platforms, so social media platforms, and you eliminate these kind of algorithms here. And no targeted ad, these are some of the regulations that you can do. And there are certain duties on civil servants, duties on government, duties on parent, duties on children. They also minors, they also have certain duties. All we have to fulfill our duties, positive duties, we have to fulfill it. This is another approach. So, next level of approach: first prevention, regulation. Now let us all perform our duties. uh, let us design a platform for the safety. and let government promotes inclusive digital access. See, these kind of certain duties we need to fulfill it. And civil servant role, what is a civil servant role? Yes, they have to be an active player. See, ultimately policy making, policy implementation, all these things comes uh, political representatives and the civil servants. Now, civil servant, they should advocate for evidence based policy making. See, it is not that blindly I'm sitting in an AC room and I'm taking a decision for the entire country. This is not going to work. Now you need to have that experience. You need to, if you're taking a decision, there it should be evidence based. So whatever decision, if you're banning, if you're not banning, if you're putting age based restrictions, that should be based on evidence. There should be some scientific study. Based on that, you take a decision. Some kind of survey you conduct. Based on that, you take a decision. Not that unilaterally you're taking decision and you're implementing and you're forcing that on everybody. That should not be the thing. Being a civil servant, it is your responsibility to advocate for evidence-based policies and foster fraternity in digital space to create some kind of positive environment in a digital space and uphold constitutional morality. So constitutional morality, it talks about dignity, liberty, equality. So if these values, if these ethical values are considered, it is going to uphold constitution morality. So this is a civil servant score. So what is the ethical solution? These four steps: prevention, regulation, positive duties, and the civil servant score. So this is with respect to social media ban. So we talked about the news, how India is trying to regulate children's social media usage. What is the news? We talked about it, and we talked about ethical dilemmas, and we talked about ethical framework. If you're taking a decision, follow this framework. Right? Even in the case studies, also, whatever the decisions you take, you have to give the explanation based on what I've taken the decision. That explanation you have to give. Right? Then ethical approach, ethical solution. So these are multi-layered proportional solution, proportional multi-layered solution. So this is with respect to social media ban. And the next article is Women's Reservation Act. What is the news here? This Women's Reservation Act, this was passed in the year 2023. So under this act, the one third of the seats in your Lok Sabha, in your assembly, and including the Delhi Legislative Assembly, it is reserved for the women. So this is the decision taken in 2023. But the thing is, they've taken a decision. The benchmark is that 2021 census. Government told that this reservation will come in effect after this 2021 census, after the after we get the information of the date of 2021. Based on that, we are going to go for a reservation. But now central government, it is changing certain aspects of this women reservation. The government is telling that 2021 census, because of the COVID, we could not able to conduct, and after that they told that by 2026 it is going to start, 25 it is going to start. They did not do it. 2026 it is going to start, but still it is going to take some time. It is going to take 2-3 years to finally tabulate everything and put the data in front of the public. So now government has taken a decision that the reservation, it is going to be based on 2011 census. So this is the news here. This is political aspect. Now what we have to see is Women's Reservation Act, and let's see the ethical aspects of this women reservation, the concept of women reservation, and what are the ethical aspects of Women Reservation Act, and what are the limitations especially. So Women Reservation Act, and what are the positive ethical points in that? It talks about fair distribution of political power in our country. If you look at it, if you look at from the independence, usually it is around 10%. Most of the time it is less than 10%. Women representation in parliament is around less than 10%, and very few times we have seen it crossing 10%. So most of it is single digit representation. Almost half of the population is women, but their representation in a political arena, it is in single digit. So that is the reason government has taken a decision that we have to give them an opportunity. So this is fair distribution. So value, fair distribution, fairness. Then it reflects the distributive justice. The distributive justice is that let availability of resources to everybody, so giving each their due. And one is distributive justice, another is John Rawls theory of justice. Two concepts you need to remember: equality and equity. Equality is that same opportunity for everybody. If there are 10 people, and if there is a 1 kg of rice, 10 people giving 100 gram to every person, this is Equality. Equity is that out of this 10 people, there is a 1 year old kid, and there is a 5 year old kid, there is 18 years old kid, there is 20 years old man. See, their necessity, it is different for different person. See, what 18 years old person eats, 1 year old, the kid, it is not going to eat the same food. And what 70-year-old person eats, the 5 year old kid is not going to eat the same food. See, it differs. Now the equity comes into the picture. So additional support to the disadvantaged group, this is the equity. So here it is talking about equity. Here it is talking about both equality and equity. So theory of justice, this Women's Reservation Act is talking about correcting structural inequalities. This is one thing. This is another value, distributive justice, fairness. And the third value is that changing societal attitude. You are changing a societal attitude through law. We have a topic: laws, rules, regulation impacting the moral attitude of a society. So there also you can give the example, Women Reservation Act. Here what you are doing is you are changing the social attitude. You are changing the political attitude of a country. So here changing social attitude towards women in leadership. So here you are using a law as a weapon, law as a method to change the social societal attitude. Then we are talking about gender justice. Another value is gender justice. So whatever the exclusion, historical exclusion, see, even just take the after independence from 1950, I told you that only it's less than 10% most of the time. It means that there is a historical exclusion is there, exclusion of women from a political power. Now we are taking a step to eliminate this historical exclusion. So we are talking about gender justice, and it gives an opportunity to expand the women capabilities. The Amartya Sen concept capability is that whatever aspirations you have that opportunity to eliminate that. So it gives an opportunity, this reservation, women reservation gives an opportunity to expand women capabilities. So it is a choice, participation, and all these, it is going to empower women, it is going to expand the capability of women. So these are certain ethical aspects. This women reservation bill talks about fairness, it talks about distributive justice, it talks about equity and equality, it talks about changing political attitude and social attitude, it talks about gender justice, it talks about expanding women capabilities. So these are some of the ethical aspects are linked to women reservation. So this is ethical aspect. Now there are some limitations also, there are some ethical limitations are also there with respect to this women reservation. What are these ethical limitations? The first thing is that, see, uh, whether it this kind of reservation, whenever the question comes, the one of the limitations is that are are we questioning the concept of merit? Here you are giving reservation to the women, here it is fine, but at the same time, what about the meritocracy? And you, it is a disadvantage the people who have that merit to be the political leaders. So you are pulling them down, and you're pushing the uh, non-meritorial candidate in the name of reservation, in the name of reserve. This is one of the limitations here. So does reservation undermine the merit, or is it morally necessary? Is it moral necessity for a inclusive democracy? This is one of the question, one of the dilemma. And then we have a reservation for the local body elections also. And so many studies have been conducted, and the ultimate conclusion it was that most of these women candidates have become a proxy of their husband. So don't you think that even for this Women Reservation Act for Parliament and Legislature, don't you think that same thing it is going to be repeated here also? So here there is a risk of women being controlled by male relatives, father or brother or husband. If that happens, what is the point of women's reservation? You don't have a reservation per se, you don't have a power, political power per se, but you're just a proxy material for other person. So then it is going to question the entire concept of Women's Reservation Act, giving empowering women through politically. So again, it questions it. And social reform. See, the low representation, it is majorly related to the social aspect here. The participation of women in politics, it should be linked to the social reform. And this social, you are doing social reform through laws, will that be effective? That is another question mark. There is a deep rooted patriarchy in our country. The women's participation is very less, or there is a proxy candidate, it is because of this deep rooted patriarchy in the society. Now you need to address that, but what you're doing, is it going to answer the social socially accepted norm? So that is another limitation. So these are three ethical dilemmas or limitations with respect to Women's Reservation Act, right? Yeah, that would be sufficient with respect to Women's Reservation Act. And the next concept is next article talks about corruption. And corruption, you have in the last unit, probity. Corruption is one of the topics, and you need to, again, you need to understand corruption from an ethical perspective. You need to understand the causes of corruption and prevention, all these aspects, and you need to understand these things from ethical perspective. You need to even answer in, even if the examination question asked regarding corruption, you need to answer it from an ethical perspective. And again, so many questions have been asked based on the corruption. There was a one question regarding role of fathers, role of mother, role of teacher in curbing the corruption. This question was asked twice actually. So there you can use these as a, what are the pointers we are going to discuss here, you can use it as a way forward there. So here the article is talking about deepening global corruption as a pointer of India. Here it is talking about corruption perception index 2025. It is published by Transparency International. This article is talking about it, but let's see, since it has been mentioned in a syllabus also, we'll cover corruption from a aspect static perspective. Let's talk about what exactly this article is talking about. It's talking about corruption perspective index, and it is published by Transparency International once a year, and it is going to rate the countries with countries with low corruption. They have the, it comes in the top, and the countries with a very high level of corruption, they usually in the bottom. And India, it is in the rank is the 91st, and last year it was 96. Now it has improved, 91st. Now, what exactly the basic definition of corruption? Corruption is that you have certain public office and you are misusing your public office for your personal gain, for your private gain. So bribery, nepotism, favoritism, embezzlement, all these terminologies comes under corruption. Right. This is basic definition of corruption. Now, what are the causes? Corruption, from three levels we need to think. First is individual level, organization level, social level. Individual level, if I am corrupt, I have certain so there are reasons for my corruption, and at individual level there is a lack of value. So I don't have value of integrity, I don't have value of honesty, I don't have value of probity. Because of lack of these values, I am involved in corruption. So individual level, lack of moral values, weak conscience. If there is a very strong conscience, then if I take money or if I involved in any kind of corrupt activity, it creates a crisis of conscience. If there is a weak conscience, I am fine with doing anything. So lack of moral values, weak conscience, or even if I don't have ethical dilemma, that is also one of the reasons to be corrupt at individual level. Then at the social, at organizational level, in my organization, I am corrupt, but individually I don't have values. All there are reasons, but at the same time, my organization itself is. Let's see the corruption at organizational level. Weak institutions. Nobody is questioning that. No transparency, no accountability, no responsibility. So the weak institution itself, and lack of, as I told you, lack of transparency and excessive discretion. And nobody is going to question you. Whatever your decisions, it's fine. Nobody is going to question you. Nobody has that authority to probe you. That also gives that authority that whatever do, nobody is going to question, and I can do whatever I want. That is, especially people in a the institution, people in an organization, these creates atmosphere atmosphere that thrives the corruption. And low salaries, poor enforcement of code of conduct, these are some of the reasons at the organization level. And at the social level also, there are certain reasons. Social level, there is a social apathy in our country with respect to the corruption. And actually, if I have to give a reason, there were so many political leaders. They were their corruption. It is proved in the court of law also, and they've been punished also. But even after that, proxy candidates have been stood in their position in the elections, and those proxy candidates of these corrupt politicians, they've won the election, or they've got a very substantial vote share also. What exactly it shows? It clearly shows that there is a social apathy. Killing or thievery, see, they have some kind of social disgust, but corruption somehow still some kind of indirect acceptance is there in our society with respect to the corruption. So even at the social level, this moral value, lacking of these moral values also plays very important roles. Again, the lack of impartiality, sorry, lack of integrity, lack of probity, lack of honesty. Yes, it matters a lot from a social perspective also. And yeah, this is from a ethic erosion of core ethical values like selflessness, non-partisanship, dedicated to the public service. And corruption perspective index, it shows that stagnation in many countries including India points to deeper issues like political interference or weak accountability. This is also one of the reasons. Political leadership, it is also a if the leadership, if there is ethical leadership, that is going to be reflected at policy level, that is going to be reflected at social level. But if the leadership itself is compromised, if the political leadership itself is involved in these kind of corrupt related activities, then it is very difficult to see very strong ethical values in the society. So these are the causes of corruption, ethical causes of corruption, right? Now measures, again, measures also from three perspective: individual level, organization level, and the social level. Individual level, internalization of core values: integrity, probity, all these dedication, selflessness. Integration of these values, core values, as these foundational values in your conduct is going to ensure that you are non. And then ethical training, ethical, you can say ethical education also from the childhood. Then once you join the job, there should be ethical training, capacity building, ethical capacity building. These are some of the steps at the individual level. Then come personal accountability. I'm not worried about what other person do, but I am not going to be corrupt. If I have this personal accountability, if I have the very strong conscience, then no matter what, I'm not going to be influenced by any other person. So personal accountability is very important. And moral leadership, we look up to the persons we admire. If the my mentor is ethically strong, morally correct, that is going to have an influence on me also, in my character also, in my conduct also. So leadership was also very much important. Moral leadership, ethical leadership, these are from individual level. Ethical measures to tackle corruption from individual level. So what are the ethical measures from institutional level, organizational level? We have code of conduct at the organization level, but article is talking about national code of ethics. National code of ethics for ministers, for legislators, for civil servants also. So here, if we have code of ethics, that usually that covers conflict of interest, that covers ethical dilemma, and it should eliminate post retirement, these kind of post retirement job, these kind of ethical compromises. So we need to have a national code of ethics. This is one thing for organization. And then we need to simplify rules and procedure, and we need to eliminate unnecessary red tapeism and make transparency very strong, ethical values in every organization, make responsibility very strong ethical factor in every organization. And effective whistleblower protection with say with safeguards against victimization, social audit, citizens charter. These are some of the tools to ensure at institutional level we are curbing corruption. So these are some of the measures, ethical measures to handle corruption. Then comes social. At the social level, we need certain measures. And what are the certain measures? Moral education from the childhood, we need that moral education in school, colleges, curriculum, and even civil services during the probationary for public servants also. Then public awareness campaigns. One thing, the unawareness also become create some kind of level of complacency for corruption. So you need to create awareness also to the public. So build social rejection of corruption. Now there is social acceptance of corruption, that has to be changed. Social rejection of corruption should be there. And citizen vigilance should be there. We need to foster the citizens vigilance. The scientific temper has to be ensured. And engagement of stakeholders, coordinate efforts among citizen, government, civil society, media, business community. All these aspects should be taken into the consideration. So these are certain measures from a social perspective. I think this is it. So we talked about corruption. So we talked about causes of corruption, ethical causes, and the ethical solution. So we discussed from a three perspective: individual perspective, organization perspective, social perspective. And this is it for the day, guys. And in the next video, I am going to cover the next week's current affairs, and we are going to connect current affairs with ethics. So thanks for the listening, and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share with your friends also. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a